What if your perfect revenge turned out to be the biggest mistake of your life? Elias, a millionaire who had been publicly humiliated and betrayed, had a daring idea: to bring an unexpected companion to the wedding of his ex-fiancée. But he didn't choose a socialite or a businesswoman. He chose Sophia, his maid. His plan: to show that he had moved on and to make an unforgettable impact. But what was supposed to be just a game of appearances took a totally unexpected turn. What Sophia did that night shocked everyone and changed their destiny forever. Get ready, because this story is far from predictable. You want me to go to a wedding with you? Sophia frowned, holding the tea tray tightly. Elijah, standing by the large window, stared fixedly at the illuminated city before him. His tone was firm, calculated. That's not a request, Sophia. She carefully put down the tray, trying to understand what was going on. I'm your maid, not your companion. Elias finally turned to her. His gaze was cold, determined. Do you have something better to do tomorrow? The silence that followed was thick. Sophia folded her arms defiantly. And why me? Because I need someone different from everything they expect. Sophia laughed without humor. That means you want to use my presence to make an impact, and you can use that to your advantage. She hesitated. The payment could solve her brother's medical problems. But getting involved in a millionaire's games was not part of her plans. I don't know if it's worth it. Elias approached her slowly. Name a price. Sophia pressed her lips together, feeling trapped. She didn't want to accept, but she needed the money. Enough to pay my brother's bills for a year. Elias nodded. Done. The decision weighed heavily on her shoulders. Before leaving, she looked at Elias one last time. If this goes wrong, I want you to know it was your idea. Elias didn't reply. He just watched as Sophia walked away. The plan was underway. That's not a dress, it's an exaggeration, Sophia grumbled, frowning at the shiny fabric in front of her. Elias, comfortably seated in a leather armchair, looked at her impassively. Appearance matters, Sophia. Do you want to be taken seriously? You have to look like you belong in this world. She snorted, running her fingers over the refined fabric. I've never worn anything so expensive. I'd rather be taken seriously for who I am, not what I wear. Then you're in for a rough night. Sophia turned to him. Do you really think Clara will care who's by her side? Elias crossed his legs and studied her for a moment before replying. Clara is not the target audience. The others are. Sophia picked up a more discreet dress. And this one? Elias shook his head. Very simple. Choose something that makes people question who you are. She rolled her eyes and picked up another dress. The shop assistant hurried to help her try it on. Minutes later, when she came out of the fitting room, she felt Elias's gaze fixed on her. Is it okay? He asked, folding his arms. Elias analyzed her for a long time before answering. This will work. Sophia felt a chill in her stomach. It looked more like armor than a dress. In the car on the way back, Elias broke the silence. At the wedding, stay by my side. Don't be provocative and keep your composure. Sophia looked out the window, her fingers clasping the fabric of the dress on her lap. What if I make a mistake? Elias glanced at her out of the corner of his eye. Then we'll improvise. She let out a brief laugh. Great plan. Elias just smiled. I didn't expect to see you here, Elias. Clara's voice cut through the murmur of the hall as soon as he and Sophia crossed the threshold. Her smile was flawless, but her eyes sparkled with malice. Much less with her. Sophia maintained her posture. She knew what Clara was doing. They say that unexpected changes bring interesting surprises, Elias replied calmly. Clara looked Sophia up and down. And who are you, my dear? Sophia held her gaze and smiled. Sophia. But don't worry, I know exactly who you are. The slight raising of Clara's eyebrows showed that the answer had taken her by surprise. Elias concealed a smile of satisfaction. "So you've decided to bring a friend?" Clara let the word drop as if it were poison. "Someone worth having around," Elias replied without hesitation. Sophia noticed a glint of irritation in Clara's eyes before she regained her composure. "I hope you enjoy the party. After all, moments like this stay with you forever." "Of course," Elias nodded. Clara walked away gracefully, but Sophia noticed the stares around her. Murmurs, evaluations, just as Elias had predicted. She leaned slightly towards him and whispered, "If you wanted a scandal, I think you've achieved it." Elias smiled in the corner without taking his eyes off the crowd. "We're not finished yet." Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. Something told her that the evening was far from over. "Do you know how to dance?" asked Elias, holding out his hand to Sophia. She raised an eyebrow. "I'm a fast learner." Without giving her time to hesitate, Elias guided her to the center of the room. All eyes were on them as soon as they started to move. "Why are we doing this?" whispered Sophia, trying to keep up the rhythm. "Because everyone is looking at us." She tried to ignore the weight of attention on her. "And what exactly do you want them to see?" Elias cocked his head, holding her gaze. "That I'm not a broken man." For a moment, Sophia forgot about the crowd. There was something in his voice, a silent confession. But the moment was interrupted. "What a beautiful scene!" Clara approached, a false smile on her lips. "You've really outdone yourself, Elias." He maintained a neutral expression. "I imagine so." Clara ignored him and turned to Sophia. "And you? Do you like acting?" Sophia smiled, unfazed. "Only when the audience deserves it." Clara briefly lost control of her expression before regaining her smile. "I hope you're enjoying the evening." She moved away, but Sophia noticed her rigid posture. "I think I've touched a nerve," she said. Elijah laughed softly. "Maybe this plan was a mistake." Sophia sighed. "Finally, something sensible." Elias pulled her in and resumed the dance. "But now that we're here, let's end this properly." Sophia simply nodded. She was now too involved to back out. "Why did you bring this girl here, Elias? To provoke me?" Clara's voice was deep, but it was full of venom. Elias remained impassive. "To show that you no longer affect me." Clara let out a cynical laugh. "And do you think you'll convince anyone with this act?" "I don't need to convince anyone," he replied calmly. Sophia, standing next to them, folded her arms. "It seems like someone is bothered by it." Clara narrowed her eyes. "You've got guts, I'll give you that. But you have to realize that there's a whole world between us." Sophia stepped forward, holding his gaze. "If you have to convince me of that, maybe it's not as true as you think." Clara didn't answer. She turned and left, leaving a trail of tension in the air. Sophia looked at Elias. "It's been fun, but enough is enough." "What do you mean?" "I mean I've done my part. You've had your show, your revenge, or whatever. I'm leaving." Elias frowned. "I'm not finished here." "I am." She turned to leave, but Elias grabbed her arm. "Not now." Sophia stared at him. "Don't hold me as if I were part of your game, Elias." He hesitated and then let her go. "Do what you want." Sophia walked away, but stopped in the middle of the hall. A group of guests were whispering and looking at her with interest. She knew what they were thinking. She took a deep breath and continued walking. Outside, the cool air immediately brought her relief. But before she could hail a cab, a voice called out behind her, "Sophia?" She turned around. Elias was standing there, hands in his pockets, his gaze unfathomable. "What now?" He hesitated for a second, then shook his head. "Nothing." She laughed in disbelief. "You're unbelievable." And she got into the taxi, without looking back. Elias stood there, motionless, with the feeling that something had slipped through his fingers. The noise of the sewing machine filled the small makeshift workshop in Sophia's flat. With every stitch, she tried to banish the memories of that night. Her phone vibrated. A notification. New order received. Sophia smiled. Her small, sustainable decoration business was growing. The dress she had worn at the wedding had attracted attention on the internet, and now people wanted her creations. There was a knock at the door. Her brother Miguel came in. "You never stop, do you?" "I have to seize the moment." "What about Elias? Has he tried to talk to you?" Sophia tensed. "No, and I hope it stays that way." Miguel hesitated. "I saw something about him on the news. It seems his company is having problems after the wedding. Rumors, scandals." Sophia took a deep breath. "He turns around. He always does." But deep down, she knew it wasn't that simple. A few days later, while adjusting a new piece of fabric, her colleague Anna came running in. "You're not going to believe it." "What's up?" "An investor wants to talk to you about your brand. He wants to expand your production." Sophia's eyes widened. "Who?" Anna hesitated. "His name is Elias." The name made her chest feel tight. "You've got to be joking." "He's made an appointment. He wants you to come to his office tomorrow." Sophia laughed incredulously. "I'm not going." Anna folded her arms. "Sophia, this could be your chance. He wants to invest. You don't have to like him for you to accept." Sophia bit her lip, undecided. "I don't trust him." "Then go and find out what his deal is." Sophia sighed, knowing she would go. The next day, as she entered the luxurious building, she felt a chill in her stomach. The secretary led her to a large room. Elias was there, waiting. He smiled slightly. "At last we meet again." Sophia folded her arms. "Let's get down to business, Elias." Sophia sat down, maintaining a firm posture. Elias watched her for a moment before sliding a folder across the table. "Take a look." She opened it, looking at graphs, growth projections, and investment proposals. "You want to finance my brand?" "I want to expand it. You have talent. You need structure." Sophia let out a brief laugh. "And you need to ease your conscience?" Elias rested his elbows on the table. "Sophia, if I wanted to compensate you, I would send you a check. I'm offering you a partnership." He closed the folder and folded his arms. "And what do you get out of it?" "I want to invest in something worthwhile, and so do you." There was a silence between them. Sophia stared at him, trying to decipher his intentions. "I have to think about it." Elias nodded. "Don't delay. There are other companies interested." Sophia stood up. "Then maybe they're a better option." She left before he could reply. That afternoon, she reviewed the proposal papers. The deal was good, but trusting Elias was another matter. The next day, Miguel found her in the kitchen. "Are you going to accept?" Sophia sighed. "I don't know. It looks like he's trying to make things right." She snorted. "People like him don't change. Maybe he's the exception." She rolled her eyes. "He could be playing games." "What if he isn't?" Sophia didn't reply. The doubt persisted. Later, while she was working, her phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello?" "Sophia, it's Elias." She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "What now? Have you thought about the offer?" She hesitated. "I'm considering it. We'll have dinner tomorrow. We'll talk more." Sophia bit her lip. "I can't promise anything, but you'll show up." He hung up without answering. She knew she was about to enter dangerous territory. Sophia placed the napkin on her lap, keeping an upright posture. The restaurant was elegant, discreet. Elias was sitting opposite her, calmly observing her. "You don't have to look so tense," he said. "I've come to talk business, nothing more." Elias smiled slightly. "Fair enough." He slid a new contract across the table. Sophia picked it up and read it carefully. "You've made changes. I've removed any clause that could put you at a disadvantage. This is an investment, not a favor." She looked up at him. "Have you really changed?" Elias held her gaze. I want you to find out for yourself." The silence continued. Sophia closed the contract. "I accept the partnership, but on one condition." "What condition?" "You have to prove that it's real." Elias cocked his head. "How?" "With actions, not words." He smiled. "Then watch me." The following weeks were intense. Sophia saw how Elias made ethical decisions, prioritizing quality over profit. He not only invested, but also defended his ideas to skeptical investors. One afternoon, after a meeting, Elias called her to the office balcony. "Are you satisfied?" Sophia folded her arms. "I'm still watching." He laughed softly. "And what do you see?" She sighed. "Someone trying to be better." Elias came closer. "Not only trying." For a moment, Sophia felt the heavy air. "What do you want, Elias?" He took her hand, firmly but without haste. "I want what you want to give me." Sophia hesitated, then squeezed his hand lightly. "Then keep showing it to me." Elias smiled, accepting the challenge. It was only the beginning.